Hi, I'm Dr. Rachel Newrick and this is Advanced Seismic Interpretation. Welcome back. In the upcoming session, we are going to be looking at a reconnaissance workflow. We will be using a marine example offshore New Zealand in an area that you're unlikely to be familiar with. That is the point. What do we do in new areas? How do we start? We might scan through the data. As an example, look at the seismic behind me. Can you determine the phase and the polarity of the data? What do we do if we don't have any wells? Do you wonder what the vertical and the horizontal resolution of the data are? Can you determine whether there are any multiples still present in the data? What if you needed to pick some key horizons? Which ones would you select? What's real? What is an artifact? What is an artifact of seismic acquisition or seismic processing? Can you decide which of the structures are geologically significant? And can you identify the FLTs? FLT, you ask? That's a funny looking thing. It's just something in the data that looks odd and you're like, what's that? It may progress to a lead. It may just be a seismic pitfall, a geohazard. It could be geologically interesting, but not interesting for petroleum exploration. Our job is to identify FLTs and progress them to leads. And that's a feature of interest, as you can see, that has the potential to contain hydrocarbon. That's our job, to make money for our companies, because we're investment advisors for our companies. We want to progress a lead to a prospect. So again, as I move around in the seismic, can you have a closer look at it to see whether you can see any FLTs, any funny looking things in these data right here. So your task today, or for tomorrow's session, or today's session, depending on whether you're looking at this in the morning or the afternoon, is to look at the 3 seismic lines that we've provided. We just want you to have some familiarity with them as we discuss the different steps. I want you to be curious, I want you to be inquisitive. And as you do that, write down all the questions that come to mind. Make some comments about the seismic. But I'm going to suggest it might help you to make a mind map instead. And if you don't know anything about mind mapping, let's take a sideways step into mind mapping. Mind mapping is a method of radiant thinking that was developed by Tony and Barry Buzan decades ago. They studied how the neural pathways of the brain worked and how we best understand and learn when we're looking at data. So instead of writing lists of information, we start with a central idea and we radiate outwards and sparks form. Again, you hear that word spark from me. So I took university notes like this. I often take technical presentation notes like this, and it really helps me. It may help you as well. It isn't dissimilar to the typical geophysicist post-it note method that you see here, and that I revert to all of the time. I'm sure you do too. So Google mind mapping if you want to know more, and it may help you with notes in this course in the future, and just brainstorming in general. I do it to make my list of what to do on the weekend. So let's take a step back, look at your seismic, start mind mapping, brainstorming ideas that come to mind. The more you use color, shape, images, the more the neural networks will form and make connections. Are there similarities between the different sections? Are there similarities with any areas you worked? Is anything congruent with any of your understanding to date? So I'm really interested to see where the discussion will lead. And as we jump into this reconnaissance workflow, I hope you enjoy the pre-session work. I look forward to your engagement. I'm Dr. Rachel Newrick, and this is Advanced Seismic Interpretation.